Chapter 51 Basics of Mana Class. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Asiva and Max had different goals for day 1. Max wanted to listen to the Basics of Mana, a lecture given by Professor Graham, while Asiva wanted to go to the class History of the Universe. The two hence parted ways and decided to check in on each other during break time. A single class of Basics of Mana cost a whopping 500 merit points to attend. However, Max just grit his teeth and decided to go for it, because, well, if there was anything he did not know at the moment, it was Basics of Mana. Varsity notification. 500 merit points have been deducted. Your current merit balance is 1000 points. Max took a seat in the back of the classroom, as it slowly started to fill with students. However, only 22 managed to show up before the lecture started sharp at 9. Now Max felt awkward. It was because he was sitting in row number 400-ish in a class of 20 students. However, Professor Graham did not seem to give a solitary fuck as to where Max had seated. Professor Graham was covered in silky smooth scholarly robes and he had that angry teacher aura about him. Every movement he made, whether it was a simple task like picking up a chalk piece or something like taking a sip of wine from his fancy wine glass, was sudden and immediate, making an onlooker feel like the man was in a hurry. Ahem, okay students, let us start with today's lecture, Professor Graham said as Max started paying rapt attention to all his words, which sounded crystal clear in his ears despite him being seated at the very far corner of the classroom. Have you ever pondered, my students, why even after millions and millions of years of evolution, why are bipedal races the way we are? Professor Graham asked, sipping his wine as he smiled. Let me ask it to you this way. Answer me all of you, how many days can you survive without food? Professor Graham asked as everyone replied something along the lines of 5.15 days. So let's say for a few days, we can live without food for a few days, but what about water? How many days can you live without intaking any fluids? Professor Graham asked as everyone fell into deep thought before replying 1.3 days. So you can survive a few days without food, a very short time, but still 1.3 days without water. But answer me this, children, how many days can we survive without air? Professor Graham asked as he provoked a deep thought in his students. Not even a few minutes. Not even a few minutes. Graham said, as his students agreed with his answer. So why do you think evolution made it this way? Why do you think that we can store food in the form of fats in our body and survive without it for days, at least 24.72 hours without water, but not even 1 hour without air? Why don't we store air, a critical component for our survival in our bodies? Over millions of years of evolution, we should have surely naturally evolved to hold more air, but we have not. Why? Professor asked, as Max was completely stunned by the question. He had personally never thought along these lines at all, and now that he thought about it, he found it extremely peculiar. Graham continued, let me give you the answer why. It's because the same air that gives us life, is the same air that poisons our bodies. The biggest cause of aging within the body is due to oxidation. Your body undergoes oxidation as it passes with time, and this oxidation gives you wrinkles, this oxidation clogs your veins, and this oxidation inches you closer to death. Oxygen is a poison, which is why our bodies do not store it for a long time. So then the question is, what about mana? If oxygen is a poison and is not stored in the body for long because it is a poison, what about mana? The question from Professor Graham flew **** with Max's mind, as Drax, who already knew the answer, calmly smiled and said, oh, this professor is good at his job. This is a beautiful way to reach this concept. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the thought you are all having is correct. Mana is indeed poisonous to our bodies. It is the reason why the First Awakening claims the lives of around 60.7% of native populations, and why reaching Tier 3 before the tutorial game Omega ends gives one a greater chance to survive the First Awakening. Because by getting accustomed to the mana, aka the poison in small doses, one develops considerable immunity over time, increasing their odds of survival. Professor Graham said, as the minds of the 22 students sitting inside were completely blown away. they felt that the secrets of the universe were unraveling before them at this very moment. But you may say, "But sir, our bodies do store mana. I myself have a mana capacity of 200 or 500 or whatever." Well, my students, if you are one of those people who think our body physically stores mana, let me break your misconceptions here today, because, between tier 0 and tier 3, our body does not store even a single unit of mana. The mana capacity indicated in your system screens is a ratio, one that indicates how efficiently your blood cells can absorb mana without causing mana poisoning in your bloodstream. Your bodies don't have the organ required to store mana yet, an organ called dantian, so the first basic of mana covered in Class 1 today is the busting of a big myth that we all used to believe in, which is, our body physically stores mana. With this, today's lecture time is over. See you all next week, same time for lecture 2. Professor Graham said as he drank the last drops of wine from his glass before storming out of the room. Even though the lecture was over, Max simply sat at the back of the room staring at the blackboard as he could not fathom the stuff he had learned today. L.RG. This was groundbreaking news for him. He undoubtedly needed to attend this lecture at the same time next week to learn more. /////A/N. This chapter has been sponsored by patron Cervantes91, please thank him for this one. ///// Chapter 52 Troublemaker. You are listening at novelfull.audio. // Warning note. The next 3 chapters contain gore and violence and are a bit dark. Please read with caution. // After the first lecture, it was break time and Max was waiting for Asiva at the designated meeting spot that they pre-decided, but for some reason she wasn't there. Did she bail on me? Max wondered, but then found the idea ridiculous as it was kind of hard to bail on him, with an army of monsters being there between here and the dorms. Max waited for a while more, but saw no signs of Asiva, which left him scratching his head as to where the girl could be. It was at this moment that he heard a few students chatter amongst themselves about a public whipping ceremony. Someone broke the rules and fought in the university grounds on the first day. Apparently it was 7 guys fighting against 1 girl, and all 8 of them are going to get a whipping. Apparently a cat.beast girl said no way, who was so dumb to fight inside the university. Her friend the bear.beast girl asked it was the vampires. Apparently it's a blood feud between their families. The cat.beast girl replied. This was all the information that Max needed as to where Asiva was, because he had a strong feeling that if there was a woman crazy enough to fight 7 guys at once, it would be her. Max headed with the group towards the Hall of Punishment, where a huge crowd had gathered to witness the whippings. About 7,1000 spectators talked in hushed voices about the 8 tied up to the poles with their backs exposed. Max immediately recognized Asiva, who was tied up to the rightmost end, covered in bruises and with a bleeding lip. Max's gut wrenched to see her in such a ragged state, as he instantly cast an inspection spell towards the other men to try and understand the reason behind the breaking out of this fight. Roy Kingsman, Tier 1, Keen Kingsman, Tier 1, Leroy Wolfred, Tier 0, Dodry Vega, Tier 0, Gavi Alonso, Tier 0, Sadio Sanchez, Tier 0, Darwin Nunez, Tier 0. Max immediately understood the matter. He had listened to Severus as he narrated the story of the wipeout of the Paredes clan and the death of Asiva's father by the hands of the Kingsman clan, and their patriarch Will Kingsman. Max could connect the dots and be sure that Asiva lost her cool upon seeing a member of the Kingsman clan and was baited into a fight with them and their henchmen. Muth **************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** under his breath as he felt rage bubbling inside his heart towards these men. The crowd was rowdy, they did not care about who was getting punished or why, their only desire was to see them be hit hard with the whips and streaks of blood dripping down their backs. Soon the head of the disciplinary department walked out to the center and started to read out the punishments of the 8 from a scroll. He said, for the crime of fighting within university grounds the disciplinary committee dishes out the punishment of 2 whips to Darwin Núñez, 2 whips to Sadio Sanchez, 2 whips to Gavi Alonso, 2 whips to Godfrey Vega, 2 whips to Leroy Wolford, 4 whips to Keen Kingsman, 4 whips to Roy Kingsman, and 5 whips to the chief perpetrator, Acaiva Paredes. The crowd roared in approval with the punishment decided, as chants of blood, 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 blood started to erupt from the crowd. The disciplinary officer brought out a long black whip from his inventory, and he flicked it in the air first just to give the roaring crowd a sound of the whiplash. Whiplash. The crowd cheered at the cracking sound of the whip, as Max winced looking at the lethality of the weapon. Max had no doubt in his mind that the whip would tear the skin it came into contact with to shreds as he suddenly missed planet Earth and the modern concepts of human rights violation. The first to receive the punishment was Darwin Núñez, and that vampire was a wimp who started to moan and cry even before the first whip landed on his back. When the first whip actually landed on his back, it made a slapping sound as it made a 2-inch wide laceration on Núñez's pale white vampire skin, taking away a chunk of flesh with the attack, as Núñez screamed and howled in pain, much to the joy of the crowd. "Spare me please, I'll die." Núñez begged the disciplinary officer, who showed him no mercy as he gave another laceration to Núñez, making a bloody cross on his back, with Núñez passing out on the spot due to the pain. Streams of blood ran down his back, as medical officers rushed in to take him to the infirmary, his friends looking worried for his health but also disgusted at his weakness. The crowd started to joke and murder Darwin's character and good name as they assigned him nicknames like Darwin the Wimp, Darwin the Coward, Darwin the Doll, Darwin the P*********. Max agreed with these names, as he felt some relief in seeing the follower of the Kingsman boys being humiliated. However, looking at the gushing wound on his back, Max also felt worried for Acaiva. The disciplinary actions continued, and the disciplinary officer met out whips after whips to the offenders, as the boys moaned and bit their lips to stop themselves from screaming, and to take their mind off the pain. While the next 4 Tier 0 weaklings did not pass out like the wimp Núñez, they were left panting on the floor at the end of their punishment, with a few having to wipe off their tears to save themselves from the shameful gazes of the university. The next to be punished was Keen Kingsman, and that guy was probably the strongest one in the group, as even the noisy crowd reduced the noise levels by a bit when they saw his muscular back, which was not slouching like the other vampires, but straight and unyielding as it awaited the lashes. Chapter 53 Sadistic Crowd. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Keen Kingsman took the first lash without uttering as much as a single sound, as a huge laceration was made across his back at a 30 degrees tilt, as blood oozed out of his wound. Chapak. The second whip was hit even harder by the disciplinary officer, as it not only hit his back, but also hit over his shoulder, as this time around the mountain of a man. Keen showed visible signs of pain, as he winced and bit his tongue to stop himself from screaming. Harder. Hit him harder. We want to hear him scream. Someone from the crowd screamed, while the others cheered, as they desperately wanted to see him suffer, their sadistic minds deriving pleasure from the pain of others. Not seeing Keen scream, something inside Max snapped, as although he did not realize it himself, he began to subconsciously use his blood manipulation skill. On the third whip, Max cursed Keen with all his heart as he wished for the whip to sever a vein on his back and for blood to ooze out of his body, subjecting him to mind-numbing pain, and although he did not willfully do it, his wish turned into reality via his blood manipulation skill, as blood started to explode out of Keen's body as he started to observe a constant bleed damage. AGH, Keen moaned, as he spat a mouthful of saliva, not being able to handle the pain of the third whipping, as the crowd roared and cheered like madmen to hear his cries of pain. Yes. Max smiled as he saw with his own eyes how Keen's back turned into a bloody mess. Ha ha ha, the bast **** finally broke. Someone from the crowd rejoiced, ha 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 ha, who does he think he is? Those big muscles won't save him from the pain of the lashes. Ha ha, so he broke after just 2. Before the fourth lash, Keen's back was bent just like the vampires before him, as he dreaded the fourth incoming laceration and howled in pain when it eventually did, much to the joy of the crowd. The medics had to rush to stop the bleeding once the whipping ended, as Keen was carried out on a stretcher with him not being able to walk out on his own 2 feet due to the excessive blood loss making him extremely dizzy. "Ha, weakling!" muttered Asiva under her breath as she smiled seeing the Kingsman being carried away on a stretcher. "Don't get too cocky, princess, you won't be able to walk for weeks after your punishment, so best to focus on yourself and not my brother," Roy Kingsman said to Asiva in a spiteful tone as he felt enraged to see his brother's pitiful state. "I don't have a weak spine like your trash brother," Asiva said as she bared her fangs towards Roy, who bared his fangs back towards her. "Silence," the disciplinary officer said as he whipped Roy the hardest whip that he had administered to anyone, as a sound that completely trumped the noise of a crowd 10,000 strong was created by the whip upon impact. "Wapak, ugh." Roy winced and cursed as he visibly shrunk his muscles trying to shelter them from the pain as he slouched and tried to reduce the surface area of his back for minimal impact. The crowd cheered, as they threw jeers and booed Roy, happy to see him suffer as he did. The second whipping was comparatively lighter, maybe the disciplinary officer felt that the first one was way too hard and compensated by going light on the second one, but hearing the boos of the crowd he made sure to make the third and fourth ones count. Roy was hurt bad, and blood dripped non-stop from over his back, but his condition was not as bad as his brother and was able to walk away from the stage with the support of the medicinal officers, but refused to go to the infirmary without witnessing the punishment of Asiva first. The crowd was absolutely wild when it came to punishing Asiva, as while the men were forced to sit bareback while taking the whippings, Asiva was allowed only one bra to cover her woman parts. The lewd men in the arena started making bets if the bra strap would snap off after the first whipping, while the more misogynistic ones were waiting to see how a woman was going to handle such high levels of pain that made strong men buckle to their knees. Everyone was waiting for Asiva to break and cry, everyone but Max, whose heart beat faster and faster as he wondered what he could do to reduce her suffering even by 1%. Right at that moment, a hand was placed over his shoulder as Max turned shocked to see Severa standing beside him. "Quite a troublemaker, isn't she? My God, daughter," Severa said with a smile on his face which gave Max the creeps as to how he could smile at such a time. "How did you get here all of a sudden?" Max asked Severus, astonished to see how he had just dropped beside him without Max ever noticing. However, Severus just waved it off as he said, "Forget it, right now is not the time for that, but you know, right now can be a good time for you to help Asiva, considering your basic blessed bloodline skill of blood manipulation. It should not be too hard for you to stop Asiva from bleeding, you know," Severus whispered in Max's ears as Max's eyes widened in surprise. He had not thought about using his skill until this moment. He knew the risks attached to using the skill, lest the world find out about it, but at this moment he did not care about it. With his only goal being to help Asiva, he decided to use it actively for the first time ever. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Savanthi. Please thank her in the comments for this one /////. Chapter 54 Asiva the Bloodless. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Finally, it was Asiva's turn to be punished, and from the stance of the disciplinary officer it was clear that he did not intend to go easy on the chief perpetrator at all. Just like Keen Kingsman, Asiva also sat with a straight back, not shying away from the pain of the lashes at all. "Wapak." The disciplinary officer turned his hips and let out a cracking whip across Asiva's back, which made a horrifying sound upon impact. The crowd cheered at the impact, but somehow Asiva's face did not even flinch upon impact, as she maintained an unyielding gaze towards the ground with her amber-colored eyes. Shockingly, while the laceration was clearly visible across her smooth back and there were clear signs of her skin tearing at the area of impact, not a single drop of blood dripped down her back. Severus smiled looking at this sight, as he looked at the profusely sweating Max standing beside him, being the only man knowing the reason behind how this was possible. The second whip was administered and this time it was hit even harder than the first time, with the laceration going all the way up from her shoulder till her collarbone. However, even now Asiva did not even flinch from the pain as her amber eyes remained clear and focused. Shockingly, even this time around there was not a single drop of blood dripping down Asiva's back as the crowd and the disciplinary officer were left scratching their heads as to what the hell was going on. Harder. Don't go easy on her just because she is a girl, she is not even bleeding. Deeper. Hit her deeper. Boos rained down from all across the crowd as the disciplinary officer felt pressured to hit Asiva harder. Inside his own heart he knew that he had administered hard whips onto her back, but for some reason the girl had shown immense spine and courage. The third whip was undoubtedly the hardest whip he had ever administered to anyone, as it made a laceration so deep on Asiva's shoulder that her muscle and bone became exposed to the air. This whip definitely hurt Asiva, who gasped for air upon impact. However, even now she did not moan in pain, nor did she bleed a single drop of blood. What the actual fuck asterisk, who is this girl? Why is she not screaming in pain? Her bones are visible. Does she not feel pain? How is she not covered in blood? How is her back still clean? That whipping was way too hard, the disciplinary officer went too far this time. The crowd erupted in talks over Asiva's pain, as this time around Asiva started to look up and scan the crowd as if trying to find someone. She eventually spotted Max, and locked eyes with him as her amber-colored eyes were spitting fire at him, as if expressing gratitude and reassuring him of his good work. Upon the third whipping Asiva had understood that it must be Max who was stopping the bleeding in her body, as a warm feeling erupted in her heart at the unexpected help she was getting. Max, who momentarily felt guilty of causing Asiva more pain than she would have gotten because of not bleeding, became reassured that he was doing the right thing when their eyes met. Apparently Asiva was exactly like Max, someone to whom her pride was more important than pain. Even the disciplinary officer felt guilty after seeing the damage done to Asiva's body on the third whipping, as he could not bring himself to hit the fourth one hard at all, as it became the softest hit of the whole session, not even cutting through Asiva's skin. The crowd booed and booed the disciplinary officer. However, nobody expected the next words they heard coming out of Asiva's mouth. "Hit me harder, you wimp," Asiva said to the disciplinary officer with conviction in her voice. Her voice made the roaring crowd go silent as their blood ran cold from seeing someone actually ask for getting hit harder. What did she say? Hit me harder. Is she nuts? Who is this woman? Did she really call the disciplinary officer a wimp? The crowd talked in hushed voices amongst each other, as they began to fear the enigma that Asiva was. Even the disciplinary officer's hands, the same ones that had met out countless lashings throughout his life, started to tremble as he gave Asiva her fifth. The fifth lash made a cracking sound against her back, but Asiva did not so much as flinch against it. The crowd was silent as they saw the horrible state of Asiva's back, but not a single drop of blood as the mad woman wore her robes and shook off the medical officers trying to help her as she walked off the stage on her own 2 foot, throwing a nasty glare towards Roy Kingsman on her way out. Little did she know that this was the day where her legend would start spreading inside the university. A legend that would be passed down from generations of students from batch to batch to batch. The legend of the woman who silenced a bloodlusting crowd of 10,000 strong. The legend of a woman who made men look like absolute wimps compared to herself. The legend of Asiva the Bloodless. Max grinned from ear to ear as he saw the crowd disperse with shock and disbelief plastered all over their faces as they questioned if they were half as tough as Asiva. However, for some reason Max's vision started to double as he tried to walk, with him fainting on the spot and being caught by Severus before he fell. Max had undoubtedly used his powers to the limit the first time he tried them, using it to help Asiva maintain her image. However, the cost of using his powers to this extent was that Max's stamina bar hit a dangerous low, causing him to faint from overexertion. Just how spells relied on mana to be fueled, bloodline abilities required stamina to be used. Max, who was a noob in this department yet, used it beyond his limits and as a result was soundly unconscious. A fate similar to Asiva's, who was out cold inside the university's girls' lavatory, after locking herself in a booth. Asiva was not okay at all, her wounds starting to bleed the moment Max's powers wore off, however it was a secret that was only known to her as to the world. She was the infamous Asiva the Bloodless, from this day onwards. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Revol 2010, please thank him in the comments ////. Chapter 55 Budding Friendship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Severus had to carefully put both the kids back inside the last shuttle departing for the dorms at night. For the significantly weakened Max and Asiva it would have been impossible to fight for a shuttle spot in their current condition. However, Severus snuck them through the fighting mob and helped them obtain a seat. The duo sat in the last corner seat of the bus, resting their tired heads over each other as they waited to arrive at the dorm area while silently regaining their strength. It had been a hard first day, and undoubtedly a grueling and tiring one. Asiva was publicly punished and lost all her merit points, while Max found out the high cost of using his blood manipulation skill. All in all it was an eventful day. A year of this grueling routine was sure to transform even a roughest lump of coal into a fine diamond. Asiva had gathered enemies on the very first day, and although Max was not afraid of the Kingsmen, he knew that having them as their enemies was sure to be a pain in the ass. While there was no urgency, Max and Asiva did need to recruit more allies within the university as a two-man team was simply not enough to survive in this brutal environment. The shuttle eventually reached the dorm area as Max and Asiva disembarked, walking shoulder to shoulder towards their dorm wing as whispers erupted amongst the crowd when they saw Asiva pass by. It's her. Asiva the Bloodless. The freak. She took 5 bone-crushing whippings today, but she is still walking on her own 2 feet while the stronger men are crippled. I heard she did not even make a single noise during the whippings. Is she mute? Her eyes are so beautiful, I wonder if she is still single. Ha! Look at that tall masked hunk beside her, do you think she will choose your 5 feet as asterisk over him? Everyone talked about Asiva in hushed voices, however nobody dared to match her gaze. Asiva had a slight smile on her face when she found out that nobody dared to block her way. It was a good feeling, she liked being feared and respected. Only when the duo reached the room, did Asiva finally let out a soft moan. Not receiving treatment at the infirmary had indeed been a dumb choice, now she had to deal with her aching wounds herself. Asiva crashed on her bed, while Max sat on the floor beside hers, as Asiva looked towards Max and said, "Thank you for your help today, it means the world to me." Max, who was panting, looked at Asiva's shining amber-colored eyes as he covered his eyes with his palms and laughed and said, "All hail, Asiva the Bloodless, the woman who made the Kingsman boys look like absolute cun****. Asiva grinned at the compliment and Max started to laugh out loud. Ha 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 ha. It was a hearty laugh by Max, and an infectious one as soon as Asiva started to laugh out loud too. Ha 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 ha. The two of them grinned and laughed like idiots as they made fun of the Kingsmen and talked about their classes and respective days. Max excitedly told Asiva about the basics of mana while she filled Max in about the history of the universe, and how her fight with the Kingsman boys started. Max already had a gut feeling that it was Asiva who would have started the fight, however, he was shocked to find out that she was provoked into the fight by one of Kingsman's underlings who called her Princess of Nowhere while another called her Orphan. Asiva did realize her stupidity to have initiated the fight inside the university campus, however, Max could understand that it was not unprovoked and give her a pass for her actions. While talking, Asiva winced multiple times as she rubbed her back that itched from the multiple lashings that she had received, as finally Max, who could not see her pain, offered her some help. "The St. Maximus clan have given me a lotion to heal wounds, if you want I can rub it on your back." Max offered cautiously, as although him and Asiva had warmed up a little to each other, he was not sure if they were close enough to rub lotions on each other's backs. Asiva was silent for a while, then she turned over and laid flat on the bed over her belly and removed her robes to show her wounded back to Max. Max did not say anything, but he quietly retrieved the lotion from his inventory, sat beside Asiva on the bed and began rubbing it over her wounds. Max took some lotion onto his hands and started applying it from the lowest wounds on her back, as Asiva moaned and winced as the antiseptic lotion burnt when coming in contact with her open cuts. Ack! Max held his breath, listening to her soft moans. It was almost too intoxicating for him to handle. However, while he was many despicable things, he was not a lewd pervert who would break the trust of his friend. Max remained diligent on healing Asiva, as he gently rubbed lotion over her back, tenderly blowing some wind over the areas that would burn, to provide her with some relief from the pain. Her smooth white skin was incredibly smooth and delicate to the touch, almost like it were of a fair maiden and not a warrior. However, multiple white scars that revealed where she had been hurt over time revealed her rough and tough upbringing that showed significant signs of combat experience. The only part where Max struggled were the soft moans that Asiva let out from time to time, as those made Max's mind go blank. Is this the same woman who did not even let out a single sound during the whipping? Max wondered. Yes, you big oaf, Grandpa Drax replied, reminding Max that his mind was not his alone anymore. After that, Max reined in his wild thoughts, lest his true feelings be exposed to Asiva. By the time Max was done, Asiva was sound asleep, and although her naked back and defenselessness would have allowed Max to take advantage of her should he have wanted to, Max respectfully covered her in a blanket and left to sleep inside his room. Hearing Max's departing footsteps, Asiva let out a rare blush and a smile. She was only pretending to sleep and was only checking if Max was a reliable partner to have. But not only did Max not touch her inappropriately or take advantage of her, but he also covered her up before he left like a true gentleman. Although it was not much, Asiva's heart warmed at this gentleman-like behavior as she grew a little more fond of her roommate, who did not seem to be that bad after all. Meanwhile, the Great Prophet was a vampire with the special ability to read through lines of fate. He was one of the most respected individuals in the court of vampire King Regus Aurelius, and was feared and respected throughout the universe. Disaster. A disaster. It's a complete disaster. The prophet exclaimed as he read through the fate lines on his usual inspection. What happened? Lord Great Prophet. A soldier who was stationed with the Great Prophet for his security inquired, as this was the first time he had seen the Great Prophet tremble so uncontrollably as if he had stared straight into the eyes of Hades himself. It's a disaster. A higher power has altered the fate line. The ancient prophecy is in play again. The prophet replied, his body covered in goosebumps as he began to shiver uncontrollably. The ancient prophecy. The primordial vampire. The soldier inquired, now feeling the chills run down his own spine. Yes, I can see the ancient prophecy coming to fruition in the next decade. The primordial vampire has been reborn somewhere in the universe. The Great Prophet said as the soldier wiped beads of sweat from his forehead. We must inform the king at once. The soldier said, as the Great Prophet nodded. A matter of grave importance had occurred within the world of the vampires. A Kingslayer had been born. May the Seven Lords have mercy, may the blood manipulator fall prey to a deadly disease and his progeny end without expanding. May he be afflicted with all sorts of ailments and may his ambitions never be fulfilled. O vampire god, the Almighty One, please heed this request of your servant, stop the blood manipulator from growing further, if you can. The prophet prayed to the vampire god, but only distant thunder rolled in the background as a response. While to others this would just be ominous thunder, but the prophet knew that the thunder meant that his request had been refused by the gods. The fate of the blood manipulator could not be altered so easily. /////A/N. This chapter is sponsored by Shadow118, please thank him in the comments for this one /////. Chapter 56, A Fight in the Jungle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A new day was a new challenge at the Grand University. because right at 6 a.m., Asaiva and Max needed to navigate through the open forests again and reach the university gates once more. Their bodies were still sore from yesterday, however, not trying was not an option and lazing around was certainly not possible. Even though their bodies hurt, the duo grit their teeth and tightened their armor, and sharp at 6:01 they were out of the dorm area and into the wild zone. Today, much less people had queued up to the shuttle stands while much more people had formed small groups to go out into the forests. For the first 5 minutes Max saw many skirmishes break out in the edge of the forests, as he and Asaiva carefully avoided active fighting and picked up pace to put some distance between themselves and the mob. "We need to roll out 15 minutes earlier starting tomorrow," Asaiva said as Max nodded. 6 o'clock seemed to start getting crowded and a 15-minute head start would alleviate a lot of these troubles. The duo were still as lethal as ever when it came to hunting, as their teamwork improved, and despite their injuries they were able to deal with monsters slightly better, as both began to understand how to use their powers against such monsters a little better. The bloodline ability of the Nightblade family was on full display too, as under the moonlight both Max and Asaiva started to be healed, with the duo feeling more and more rejuvenated as time went on. Whether it was rotten luck of the Kingsmen, or the rotten luck of Max and Asaiva, through pure coincidence, at around July 7th, 15 am, the duo encountered the entire Kingsman troop of 7 boys who had been out hunting early this morning trying to regain the merit points they had lost yesterday due to disciplinary action. "Clap clap clap, look boys, look what the cat dragged in," Roy Kingsman said as he clapped his hands, staring Asaiva dead cold in the eyes. "Oh, aha, it's Asaiva the Bloodless, the mighty heroine who made all of us look like spineless fools yesterday." Leroy Wolford, the #1 henchman, said, "They said that the Kingsman clan is not man enough when compared to Asaiva the Unyielding, but I wonder if they will say the same thing when we rape her right here, right now, and send the video all across the campus. Surely that will prove our manhood." No. Roy Kingsman joked. However, before Asaiva or anyone could react to that joke, Max seemingly absolutely lost his mind as there was no warning given, as he blasted Roy Kingsman instantly with his strongest attack, the Fireblast. The attack caught Roy off guard, as the only thing that he could do was flinch at the incoming attack but could not avoid it, as his entire body was engulfed in scorching hot flames, causing him to scream in pain. "Argh!" Roy Kingsman shouted, his HP dropping rapidly as he ran around like a human torch, somehow trying to get the flames to extinguish. However, unfortunately for him, the place he ran into was the sharp end of Max's sword, as Max plunged his rave slasher straight into Roy's heart. "How dare you, filthy mongrel, even talk about touching Asaiva?" Max said, his voice containing a primal rage that sent a chill down the spines of everyone present as everyone took note of the masked assailant with blood-red eyes. System notification. You have killed Tier 1 player, Roy Kingsman, inside a wild zone, gaining plus 700 EXP. Plus level up. Plus healing bracelet, rare, plus fake hair wig, damaged, system remark. An actual kill with skills. Since when did the evil man turn honorable? Varsity notification. You have killed a player in the wild zone, you gain 10% of his merit points plus 65 merit points. Current merit points total 1270. You mage. How dare you attack our brother? Charge. Keen Kingsman shouted as the 6 of them charged at Asaiva and Max. Max's heart was bubbling with rage. The comments made by Roy had been so demeaning that it made Max extremely mad, so much so that his anger completely trumped all other senses of his, throwing him down a frenzy of bloodlust and rage. Max's fighting style evolved. He had always wished to be a dual sword-wielding fighter just like his brother, but in his rage he adopted a much more stable fighting style for himself, where he wielded Rave Slasher with his left hand and used his right to throw fire spells. Max was a man possessed. Once the smell thick, fresh vampire blood wasped into his nose, as underneath his mask he was snarling with his mouth dripping with saliva, but on the surface his intent to kill anyone that stood in his way only grew stronger. While Asaiva struggled to take on 2 enemies at once, Max handled the other 4 by himself and still came out ahead as he was completely dominating the 4 of them alone, blasting fireballs without the need to replenish mana and swinging his sword with a precise accuracy. Max's style of fighting was extremely rash, one that only focused on attacking and not defending at all. However, it was due to his superior sixth sense that he was able to avoid attacks coming from his blind side or counter them in time to turn the tides of battle even when being outnumbered 4-1. Max blasted one attacker with a fireball, knocking him back to his ass, as he pounced on top of him like a hungry tiger and impaled his sword straight through his wide-open mouth and through, killing the man. His friends tried to attack Max from behind, trying to take advantage of Max's exposed back. However, Max's instincts made him use the fire-wall skill to cover his back, deterring the enemy from advancing. Fuck, is his mana capacity endless? He has already used one fireblast, 17 fireballs and now a firewall, all this without chanting a single spell. Who the fuck is this masked guy? Leroy Wolford exclaimed, fear growing in his heart at Max's limitless power display. Brr, an animalistic roar came out of Max's throat as he started charging towards Leroy, as saliva now dripped under Max's mask and was visible onto his throat. What the absolute fuck? Sadio Sanchez said, as he wondered if they were fighting a Beastman tribe member or something, because Max's behavior was absolutely animalistic. One after another, Max gave the henchman of the Kingsman a brutal death, as he stabbed two members right in the heart while snapping one's throat off with his bare hands. Asiva too had finished off her two opponents by now as she went looking if Max needed any support, only to find him without a mask wrestling a wild bear as he planted his fangs into his throat, drinking its blood. There was nothing but madness inside his red eyes, when they glanced over Asiva, a murderous glare that made even a warrior like her shiver in fear. Asiva had seen this glare before, in vampires whose satiety index dropped below 40, however, she was sure that Max had eaten a full meal only 2 days ago, which meant it should have lasted him at least a week. Unless, satiety dropped faster for primordial vampires. Chapter 57, a new nickname. You are listening at novelfull.audio. System notification. Satiety rises above 60%, your clarity returns, system notification. You have killed a level 13 wild bear plus 240 EXP plus level up. Varsity notification. Plus 45 merit points for killing the bear. Current merit points total. 1890. Max was jolted back to reality with the system notifications as he looked at the disheveled bear corpse at his feet and realized that he had probably been munching down on the poor thing. Max wiped the blood dripping from his mouth, as he scanned his surroundings only to see Asiva standing a few meters away having both her in the air, as if signaling that she surrendered. Raven, you okay? Asiva asked, as Max looked at her with a confused expression on his face. Max's memory was a little fuzzy, all he remembered was that someone insulted Asiva and he got extremely enraged as he attacked the guy, and then a fight broke out. After that, however, everything was blurry in his mind as he did not particularly remember what had transpired. Max checked the system logs, to see that he had killed 5 vampires in the last 40 minutes and gained 2 levels and some pieces of equipment in the process. I'm okay. Max said as Asiva breathed a sigh of relief to see him being able to reply. Although Max could not see his own eyes, Asiva could see the madness that he had plastered inside his eyes even at this very moment. Max's blood-red eyes were eerie on and about itself, however, when he lost his mind his white pupils also started to tint in red, as if he was a chain smoker who had smoked illicit substances for hours. Currently Max's white pupils were half white half red, which when coupled with his blood-red irises gave him a very dangerous look. Asiva tossed Max his sword and mask, which Max re-equipped quickly, as she asked, "What's your current satiety level?" Max opened his stat panel to check. XX. Basic information, name. Unnamed, not yet assigned, race. Primordial vampire, resident of, planet #H2047, alignment. Lawful evil, languages. Bipedal English, titles. None, level. 13, 43%, tier. 0, stats, mana. 0, health. 150, stamina. 150, blood satiety. 62%, .xx. 62%, Max replied as Asiva winced a little at the reply. She was borderline shocked as to how even after drinking a whole damn bear dry Max's satiety was still only 62%, as she immediately knew that something was seriously wrong with how Max's bloodlust worked. Do you have any blood bags on you? Asiva asked. I did get some from Severus, but he told me to drink one every week. Max replied, drink now, get it over 90% and never let it fall below 70. Asiva instructed, as Max took out a bag of frozen human blood from his inventory and chugged it down as if drinking refreshing water after a hike. Max's satiety quickly climbed, consuming human blood as it rose over 90% with just a 1-liter bottle. Done. Max said, as Asiva nodded, and the two continued on their path. Although the matter was settled for the moment, Asiva made a mental note to ask Severus about Max's condition, as he was undoubtedly becoming hungry much faster than a normal vampire. What the duo did not know was that Keen Kingsman was live streaming the fight from the moment the group encountered Asiva, and Max and Roy started his hate speech. His intention for doing the live stream was to humiliate Asiva and get some payback for the humiliation they suffered the day before, but all that the live stream achieved in the end was to get a fresh round of humiliation for the Kingsman and put the masked Max on the university's map. The video quickly went viral, and people started calling Max the Mad Mage, the Rabid Dog, and the Hound. Max's animalistic fighting style and the dripping of saliva from under his mask as he growled like an animal became especially viral clips, as the whole of university was quickly talking about it. Unaware of this development, Max and Asiva continued to make their way through the forest, trying to gain enough merit points to be able to pay for the day's lectures. The duo reached university grounds at a dangerous 8:55 a.m., and had to rush to get to the class before it started at 9 sharp. From the moment they arrived at the university, Max saw that exponentially more people had made it to the university grounds on the second day compared to the first one, meaning people were starting to figure out how to reach the university grounds, and a week or two later this number would have doubled still. Today, both him and Asiva were going to attend the same lecture, which was the main lecture of their course here and the one that made the university the well-established institution it is. The lecture taken by the Honorable Principal himself, Basics of Combat Training. The course cost a whopping 1,000 merit points to attend a single lecture, and while Max could afford it with a few points to spare, Asiva literally had earned exactly 1,003 merit points in her hunt today, giving her barely enough margin to attend the lecture. The class was jam-packed by the time Max and Asiva reached the room, a stark contrast to the 20.25 people class attended by Max the day before, with people having to stand at the very back because all the seats were already filled up, and Max and Asiva were no different, having arrived at the very last minute, resulting in them also having to stand at the back. 9 a.m. sharp, the principal walked into the room with an absolutely domineering aura, as his well-trimmed beard, white and gray hair and thick glasses made him look like the typical image of a scholar that was stereotypicized in the universe. He picked up a chalk, broke it in half and threw the other half violently at the side of the wall, creating a clean hole in the thick classroom wall as a result, as he pointed to the hole and said, Lesson 1. Everything is a fucking weapon, and the half piece of chalk in my hand is a weapon that will go through your body like it's butter, so from this moment on, keep your eyes open, mouth shut, or be prepared to die. There was pin-drop silence in the room after this moment, as not only did the professor manage to garner everyone's attention, but he also ensured that everyone here would maintain the decorum of his classroom, out of respect or out of fear. Chapter 58, The Path of a Perfect Warrior. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alright, with that out of the way, welcome children to Basics of Combat Training. All of you here managed to get into this class, which means you are better than at least 50% of the trash we have lined our pockets with at the university. Sir, may we come in? A group of 10.15 students interrupted the principal in his speech, and the principal's eyebrows began to twitch in anger at the interruption. He looked at his clock, it was 9:02, and he said, 2 minutes late, the penalty is 20,000 merit points, pay up and get in or scram. The group of children outside looked aghast, but they did not dare say anything to the principal as they scrambled away without saying another word. Without missing a beat he continued, I'm sure over 90% of you here are idiots hailing from big families and clans, having been pampered all your life and handed everything. Well, that's exactly why I made the university a brutal game of survival, making it hard to even attend lectures without facing constant life and death struggles. Don't mistake my intention, children, I'm not a sadist, I don't derive joy out of your misery, and I don't want you all to fail in life. If I could make one wish right now, I would wish for all of you to be gods one day and rule your own galaxies and be prosperous and powerful. But this is not a fairy tale, my children, it's reality. So lecture 1, here is my advice to all of you. Wake up to reality because, my dear children, the reason why your families spent millions of gold to send you here is not that you may someday become a tier 2 trash warrior or a tier 3 warrior or a tier 4 ascended warrior. They sent you here to help you build the foundation to reach the very top. And to reach the very top, you need to take a path uncharted by others. A path of struggle and refining, a path that will lead to holistic development and not just short-term gains, and that path, boys, girls and beasts, is the way of the perfect warrior. Max carefully listened to the professor, his passion bubbling because he could perfectly relate to the things that the professor was saying. He had indeed come to the university because he heard that it gave one the chance to build a robust foundation that she could build on to get really far in the future. Every year, I teach my students the way of the perfect warrior, and every year, not even one single student is able to complete the training. 47 years, I have been principal, yet in my long tenure, not one student has completed the path. The last one to complete the first 2 levels of the path is me myself. Under the tenure of the Honorable ex-principal of this university, however, it has been 56 years since anyone else did. Maybe it's because I'm not competent enough as a motivator and a teacher, or maybe you nobles don't have the hunger necessary to walk the path. Either way, it's a new year, you are a new batch, and I'm a fool who still hopes. So let me teach you all the path of the perfect warrior. The path of the perfect warrior is based on the idea that while leveling up only gives a certain AP every time one levels up, special activities allocate specific points without leveling up. For example, training inside the gravity chamber will eventually give an individual a +1 AGI notification because of their intense training inside. So the perfect warrior is an individual who maxes out these additional stat points for all stats at every single tier. It differs from species to species, and it gets harder and harder as the tiers progress. However, the benefits are also immense. As you all must know, when one upgrades from tier 0 to tier 1, all their stat points are doubled. From tier 1 to 2 doubled again, and so on till tier 5. Now imagine you have 10 extra points in agility at tier 0 because you trained hard. Then it doubles, and doubles and doubles, and by the time you are tier 5 those 10 extra points become a whopping 120 points. But let me give you the kicker, that's only if you maximize your potential at tier 0. If you continue to do it at every tier, by the end you will have 1000 stat points more than a fighter of your same level at the very peak of tier 5. A perfect tier 0 warrior can fight a mid-tier 1 warrior on equal grounds. A perfect tier 3 warrior can fight a top tier 4 warrior on equal terms, and a perfect tier 5 warrior can break the vast chasms and fight a god while being immortal. The principal exclaimed, his voice full of emotions. As the eyes of many students began shining brightly at the vision they were shown by the principal. The path is perilous and not for the weak-willed, it's a path only for someone who wishes to become a supreme warrior, a warrior with the best foundation, and a warrior who doesn't just mindlessly aim to improve, but has the patience and vision to aim for heights beyond what most can ever dream to achieve. I myself have perfected tier 0, tier 1, and tier 2, and for the last 14 years I'm perfecting my tier 3 base, and I'm finally getting closer to the end. If I wanted to, I could have become a tier 4 warrior 14 years ago, but my goal is higher. My goal is not just tier 4 but a level much beyond, which is why I'm still honing my craft. Come walk this path with me if you dare, //////A//N. Bonus chapter for hitting the Power Stones target. Good job everyone /////. Chapter 59 Insane Training Regimen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The moment the professor said that a perfect warrior could combat a Tier 4 warrior at Tier 3 and even break the Great Chasm and fight a god as a peak Tier 5 mortal, Max instantly thought of his brother and how he fit the description perfectly. Everyone aspired to be such a type of warrior, one that was unparalleled within their own tier and could even fight higher-tiered opponents. Max wanted to walk on the path of the perfect warrior, however, the principal himself was stuck on perfecting the third tier for many years. This meant that the difficulty of maxing out stats in each tier increased exponentially with time. This was a huge red flag for someone who was chasing great power and fast at that. However, to Max, who did not have mana, and only relied on stats to improve as a warrior, this sounded extremely appealing. This path your professor talks about won't be easy to complete, boy, but it will give you an unparalleled advantage regarding your foundational strength, because it will compound over time as you progress through tiers and make you a much more formidable warrior than an average fighter. Grandpa Drax said as he encouraged Max to consider it seriously. Max was lost in his thoughts when the principal's voice echoed. For those of you who might be thinking of following this path, let me tell you exactly how difficult your routine is going to be. I am sure all of you know by now that there are 6 basic attributes: strength, dexterity, intelligence, agility, constitution, endurance. To maximize each stat, you will need to undergo a particular training for that exact stat, but that will not be your own goal here. You are in a university offering many valuable lectures on subjects that you would not wish to miss out on, so here is what your life will look like if you wish to undertake the path of the perfect warrior. Morning. Wake up early, wash and get ready. Go out. Fight your way through the forest, harvest some merit points, hone your fighting skills, reach university grounds. Attend lecture. Attend your chosen class, spend your merit points, learn something new. Train. Depending on the day of the week, you train one attribute. Monday is Strength Day, you go to the training arena and pay merit points to use it for 8.10 hours, train like a madman. Tuesday is Dexterity Day, go to Blacksmithing Hall or Alchemy Hall or whatever profession hall appeals to you, and craft objects to increase dexterity. Wednesday is Intelligence Day, go to the library, read books and solve puzzles. Thursday is Agility Training, you get to train your body inside a gravity chamber. If you push hard enough you might even increase endurance by a bit. Friday is for Constitution, you go to the medicinal hall and are poked with needles and soaked in medicinal water that will put your body through so much pain that you would wish to never have been born. Saturday is for Endurance, where you do endurance drills until your stamina hits 0, drink a potion and do it all over again. After all this torture, you still have to make your way back to the dorms through the forest, earning much needed extra merit points to sustain your expenditure on the next day. On an average you will need to earn 2,000.2500 merit points a day. If you somehow stick by this maddening training regime for just 9 months, I guarantee you will max out your stats up till Tier 1 by the time the end-semester season rolls around. Alas, this is all just wishful thinking on my part. I will see thousands of you training out there tomorrow, a few hundred a month later. Not even 3 months down the line, and not a single person after 6 months. The principal observed the class's expression as he said this and saw many lose the shine they had in their eyes when he told them that a perfect warrior could fight higher-tiered opponents easily. Every year he made the same speech and every year turned out to be the same. Everyone wanted power, but no one wanted to work hard for it. The principal looked at his watch as he said, 5 minutes left, does anyone have any doubts? He waited for a few seconds, however he doubted if anyone was going to ask him anything. However, shockingly one hand was raised from the crowd. The attention of the whole class fell on the boy who had raised his hand. He was sitting on the very first row, signifying that he must have reached the class extremely early. The boy had blonde hair, chocolate brown skin and looked like a Caucasian model. He was a human, but did not seem to be from Earth. Yes. The principal asked, "Sir, what is the best activity for Sunday?" You explained what to do for Monday through Saturday, but missed Sunday. The principal studied the boy's expression for a while, and tried to see if he was kidding or just trying to act like a jester, but when he found him to have a straight face and no malicious intent, the principal smiled as he said, "Sunday morning is practical combat class. Everyone who wishes to fight gets to fight in a supervised arena in the university, and get pointers on the fight by the various qualified professors. Sunday evening I would suggest you go out from the university to either Morningstar or Dew Star Planet, wherever you are allowed to go. Join a mercenary guild and focus on completing F&E ranked missions. One that doesn't take more than 2.5 hours. Have a foot inside society and how the mercenary world works, it will help you a lot." "Okay, thank you," the boy said, as he bowed to the principal and took his seat. It seemed like he was dead set on fulfilling the routine that the principal had suggested. Chapter 60 Max Gets Lucky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max and Asiva walked out of the class having their minds completely blown away, both walking in silence, as they weighed the benefits and costs of walking the path of a perfect warrior. "Look, it's Asiva the Bloodless and the Hound. Run. That's the rabid dog, the bodyguard that Asiva the Bloodless carries around. That's the mad mage, the one who spams fire spells without stopping. Look at his bloodthirsty eyes. He is definitely insane. The hound looks so sexy, I want his baby in my belly." Shut up. You are a guy. Stop talking nonsense. The entire corridor gossiped about Max and Asiva as they walked by. The duo had become quite popular inside the university in 2 short days. "So, will you follow the path?" Max asked Asiva. Asiva scratched her neck for a while and then said, "Nah, I'm already tier 1, I don't think it's suitable for me. From what I understand it's harder to continue on tier 2 and tier 3 levels, and we won't be inside the university forever, there won't be training rooms in reality. The method will lose its practicality. What about you?" "I'll probably go for it. It sounds hard, but also exciting. What happens in the future will happen in the future, but at least for now, I want to try to walk the path." Max replied. Asiva nodded, she respected Max's choice. The two continued to discuss small nuances when they were interrupted by a group of women. "Asiva the Bloodless, the Hound, I am Sherlin a witch and this is my team of warriors. I come here to recruit you both to join my team, to conquer this uni." "Not interested," Asiva replied coldly as she bumped her shoulder into the woman and continued walking, leaving Max at a loss for words. Bye. Max awkwardly stepped across the group and chased after Asiva in fast steps. He liked the swagger of his teammate, but he also thought that she was too cold to outsiders. When Max finally caught up, Asiva said, "Bunch of tier 0 weaklings, not worth teaming up with." Max said nothing and kept walking in silence, as he thought, but I'm also tier 0. "What do you think of the chocolate boy Max? The one who asked the doubt in the classroom?" Asiva asked. "I don't know, the guy seemed like a teacher's pet, first bench, asking questions. I don't know, not exactly my type of person." Max replied. He did not have a very strong impression of the kid, he did not like him, he did not dislike him, there was no particular emotion. "He is special, keep an eye out for him." Asiva said as Max was surprised by this answer. "Why is he special?" Max asked curiously. "Because my gut tells me so, and because the inspection spell fails when you try to inspect him." Asiva replied. Max instantly disliked the guy post this comment by Asiva. Who the hell was the damn kid to be classified as special by his friend? Max vowed to show him his place whenever he got a chance. Max and Asiva parted ways after that, deciding to meet back at 10:50 p.m., as Asiva wanted to check out the library while Max wanted to explore the campus. There was still a lot of time before the evening lecture started, and Max was getting swarmed by people with requests to join their team. However, what he did not understand is why they were all calling him names like Hound or Rabid Dog or Mad Mage. He soon got the answer when he saw the #1 post on the university forum. Mother asterisk 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 asterisk, Max cursed internally. This incident was bad for his plan of remaining low-key. Thankfully he did not use blood manipulation skill or take off his mask until they were all dead, otherwise his identity would have been exposed today. Close one, Drax said, as Max nodded. It was indeed a close call. Max cringed when he saw saliva dripping from under his mask and heard his own gruff animalistic voice. However, just as he was watching this video, a paper chit hit his foot. Max looked around, and saw a cat-beast girl smiling at him, as he bent over and picked up the chit. The chit read, "Why don't you show me your wild moves in the bathroom over a quickie, hottie, omo." Max looked at the chit, then looked at the cat-beast girl, and then felt a boner rising inside his pants. He was no saint, and with time still left before the next lecture he was undoubtedly not going to say no to a quickie. Walking up to the girl, Max said in his manliest voice, "Let's go." The cat-beast girl yelped in joy. It was a very cute sound that made Max even more aroused as the two went away to a desolate corner in the university to have some personal space to do the deed. Suddenly the video did not feel all that bad to Max after all, because the right kind of people were seemingly aroused by it. Meanwhile Asiva had not gone to the library. She lied to Max about it, because she did not wish to tell him that she was going to meet Severus. Even if Asiva wanted to go to the library, she only had 30 merit points, which were not enough to enter, and it was an obvious flaw that Max missed to pick on. Asiva found Severus sweeping the floors as he smiled while doing his job. "You look stupid with that smile." Asiva said. "You look gorgeous with your frown." Severus replied, "Tch, whatever, I'm here for Ma, Raven." His satiety falls very fast for some reason, I'm worried. Asiva said. Severus looked up from the floor and gave Asiva a surprised look as he said, My, young love." Asiva's face instantly reddened as she said, "No, you idiot, take this seriously." Severus nodded as he said, "Well, I'll increase his blood supplies, continue to monitor him, you make sure he drinks a bag of blood every morning and we should be good for now." Asiva said, "You already know about today morning, don't you?" Severus smiled. "Oh, I was sitting there on a tree branch, watching you two fight, eating an apple." Asiva pointed both her middle fingers at Severus and stormed off. The ability that Severus had in pissing her off was unparalleled. // bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Good job everyone //